Hi, everyone. I'm Ken Rakowski. Welcome to Metal Connect. And this is a very unique Metal Connect because generally it's just me interviewing one of the great people that we had with us on Saturdays. But today, Sandy Grigsby is joining us. And she's actually going to introduce our guest because I discovered our guest from Sandy. And I figured this topic would be much better if I'm joined by somebody who could ask better questions than I could. Sandy, you want to introduce our guest?
Yes, our guest is Saundra Pelletier. She is a wonderful woman. She came to me to do her personal branding portraits because, well, her company is blowing up. Mm-hmm. So she is the CEO of Evofem, and she has this exciting new product that is totally unheard of before called Phexxi. Saundra, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Sandra.
Thank you both for having me, I have to say. And by the way, I actually love you both. I mean, I might love Sandy a little more, but love you both. So thank you for having me.
She's the most lovable. Eddie, do you agree with that? Sandy's probably the most lovable of the two of us. Yeah.
I'm with Eddie. Yes, Eddie's a smart man, clearly, yes.
Today, what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of allow you two to have a dialogue. And because I think
because we're talking about girl bits.
Not just that. I think where Sandra is so revolutionary that's necessary for a woman to come, because I didn't know these things. And I don't think most men and most fathers need to know about this because they're going to say, oh, it's reproduction. You know, this is something when they're independent on their own. But this goes back to when girls start questioning certain things and how important it is to really understand what's going on. Now, Sandra, I want to ask a question. How do you want to start this? Because I know you gave us a deck with a few slides. Do you want to go through those slides first, or do you want to have dialogue?
To tell you the truth, honestly, I'm completely flexible. And those slides were just to kind of frame the opportunity that exists for investors for the company and to show, what happens in the contraceptive market so people can see what a huge market it is. But then there was a slide about all of the old school ideas that we place on men as they're little boys and they're born. And the reason I shared that is all of our investors are men, good, amazing men that care about their daughters and their wives and their significant others. And they recognize that it's time for new innovation in women's health. So I don't know. I'm kind of.
Let's do this. Let's hold on. I want, because the imagery, you haven't seen it yet. She's got some very powerful imagery. I think it will matter more after we learn Sandra's story. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we pop it up, Sandra. Because I think once people get to experience you, because I walked in on you and Sandy when your branding session was going on. And then I learned about you. And it was one of these, a JDM. I had a jaw-dropping moment after meeting you. I go, who is this dynamic, incredible superhuman? Okay. So let's start with just you. Tell us a little about who you are as a person. You're down in Southern California.
Yep, I'm down. Yeah, so the company that I run is called Evofem Biosciences. And, the big deal is, and why I'm wearing this shirt, is that in the category of birth control, right, if you really think about it, particularly the men on the phone, the responsibility is really on women, right? If you have daughters and your wives and significant others, when they start having sex, they're asked to control that every day of every week of every month. So if you think about having a daughter and suggesting to her that you should put a synthetic hormone in her body that she doesn't need, it's not saving her life, it's not for heart disease, it's not for blood pressure, it's not for diabetes, it's just so when and if she has sex, she won't get pregnant. But think about her doing that year after year after year, and what that does to her body and what that does to her ability to get pregnant when she wants to. And a lot of young women are saying to us, look, I was in college and I was put on an antidepressant. I was put on an anti-anxiety product. But then when somebody cared enough about me to look at my hormone levels, they recognized when they took me off of birth control, I felt normal again. I felt like myself. But the one interesting part is that, as I said before, all of our investors are men. And I say to them, listen, don't take my word for it. Talk to your wife or your daughter or your significant other or your sister. And they come back and they say, you know what? I can't even believe it. My wife tried 3 different products. My sister was on 4 different things and she kept trying different things. But how did I know? I had no idea. Women don't really talk about it, right? It's not like you go to dinner and say, let's talk about my contraception. They talk about it with their friends or maybe their doctors. But the one thing that's staggering is that there's 21 million women right now in the United States that currently are having sex. They use no form of hormonal contraception because they say, look, I don't have hormones in my milk and I don't have hormones in my food. And does it really make sense to put a hormone in my body when I have sex once or twice a week? And so if you think about it, would you do something every single day if it made you feel bad, if you didn't even need it, except for once or twice a week? So we are the only company that has really brought a product like this to market. It's been 2 decades since any innovation has been introduced in this category. And not only do we have a product that has no hormones, but we also are doing a study to bring a product to market that will prevent chlamydia and gonorrhea. And there's also no products for that. And by the way, that impacts both men and women. So the company is exciting and the company is really innovative, and it's made up of really cool people who have very serious personal experiences with this kind of stuff. And so we're really glad and we're proud to be here. And what I loved is when Sandy was doing my photos, which by the way, oh my goodness, she is magical. If you guys don't, I mean, she is, it's amazing what she did. My photos pre-Sandy, I looked like I had been dragged behind horses for days by a rope. And then after that, it was like, ta-da! But what I loved is it made me feel like I looked how I felt, you know, on the inside. But anyway, when I met Ken, what I appreciated is that as a man, he was like, look, dads need to know about this if they have daughters. Like, what father wants to have his daughter be on a synthetic hormone that she doesn't need? And then the final piece, and then I'll be quiet for a minute, is that for me, I was on hormones for 20 years. And 2 years ago, I ended up getting stage 3 breast cancer. And my oncologist said it is 100% because I used hormonal contraception for 20 years. And when you go through that and have to have a double mastectomy and have your uterus taken out and your ovaries taken out and you're bald and you go through chemo because you use birth control, it definitely wakes you up to a reality where I don't have a daughter, I have a son, but if I did, I would never, ever, ever let her use hormonal birth control. So that's sort of that was long and verbose, sorry about that, but that's my quick story.
No, that was awesome. And you know, it's not, you had mentioned how dads want this for their daughters. It's not just for their daughters, it's also for their wives, for their partners, because hormonal birth control does more than make you totally wacky. Of course, it makes you wacky. And guys, yes, you know, the crazy nut job woman syndrome, a lot of that might have to do with her birth control that she's taking. So it can also make women reset themselves back to normal, and it increases their sexual pleasure. So let's talk about a little bit about the product and how it works, what it does, and why it's amazing.
Awesome.
Sandra,
Great.
can you please tell us about Phexxi?
Yes, I would be happy to. So one quick thing, as you see, I'm wearing the shirt, but just so you know, the name's just not a clever name. So the product Phexxi, the pH speaks to how it works, the mechanism of action, which is incredibly simple. Okay, so a woman's vaginal pH is 3.5 to 4.5. When semen goes in, her pH rises to 7 or 8, she gets pregnant. When chlamydia gets in, when gonorrhea comes in, pH rises to 7 or 8, she gets a sexually transmitted infection. So our product is acid buffering. And what it does is it maintains a normal vaginal pH. That's it. So it makes it inhospitable for semen and sexually transmitted infections. Now it's a gel. So a prescription is a box of 12 pre-filled applicators, okay? And so you put it in right before sex or up to an hour before. And so what's really interesting about that is that when we first launched, some doctors said to me, you know, it might interrupt the moment, so young women aren't going to use it. And I said, well, I got to be honest, we'll see how that goes. You cannot believe the groundswell from young women saying, look, some of them said, I go into the bathroom before I have sex anyway. I just put this in, throw away the applicator, no big deal. But a lot of girls said, I'm already using lubrication. Not just girls, women saying, I have vaginal dryness or pain with intercourse. I'm already using a lubricant. This is a no-brainer. I just use it as part of intimacy. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to put it on my glass. I'm going to drink my water so I don't spill it on myself or so though. Okay, so any woman who has used a tampon, right? This is a very simple little applicator, okay? And you'll see, I show investors this and I show them so you can see this, okay? 5 milliliters goes right into the vaginal cavity. If you can see that, I show it because it's viscous, bioadhesive, it does not leak out. Women aren't going to use something that leaks out, but they really, really like the lubricating properties. And when Sandy talked about sexual pleasure, in our study, we looked at sexual satisfaction and sexual pleasure. And I want to tell you why. All contraceptive marketing is fear-based. You don't want to get pregnant. You don't want to get pregnant. You don't want to get pregnant. Never does anybody consider women should have pleasurable sex. We should enjoy it, right? What a concept. But the evil trick is that hormonal contraception actually lowers your libido. Okay, so imagine you're taking something every day that lowers your libido and you're taking it so that you can have sex. It's the craziest thing. So our product, because there's no hormones, has no impact on your sex drive, but in fact, it helps your sexual pleasure. So we're very excited about that. But that's the product. So it works by maintaining vaginal pH.
Sandra, that's a really big deal. And guys, are you listening to this? I mean, this is huge. A lot of times your woman might not want to have sex with you, and it's not even your fault. Yeah, okay, sometimes it is. No, this isn't your fault. Because I was on birth control for decades, and it started giving me serious side effects. I started getting nonstop bladder infections, and my libido was super low. I was like, oh, please. But as soon as I went off of that, everything changed. So this is an opportunity for a woman to increase her sexual pleasure, which means she wants more sex. Can you handle that? And it makes her feel completely in control of her body and safe, because birth control is hard to remember to take. Women do torturous things to their bodies. Besides just taking those stupid little pills, they do injections. They stick implants up there that are painful, that tissue can wrap around and they have to have it surgically removed. They do all kinds of disgusting, horrible things to prevent themselves from having a baby. And the problem is sometimes that becomes permanent. So women can't have children when they want. I was even told when I was on birth control, if you're ready to have a baby, you need to wean off of it for a long time. Well, the side effects were hormonal imbalance, acne, believe it or not. So your woman might be obsessed with how she looks, and how she looks is because of the medication she's taking.
I just want to say one thing also. When you got off of birth control, one of your concerns was my odor.
Yes, that's actually a big one. Birth control changes the pheromones of what we perceive. And the reason is it makes your body think that you're already pregnant. So women don't smell men in a way that they're looking for a mate. They smell them as if they already have the mate. So a lot of women will go off of birth control and then really smell their partners and go, you don't smell so good. And they don't want you anymore.
Yeah,
well, plus, when Sandy just said that some women put in IUDs, there's a whole new study that just came out that some of those IUDs are the very thing that's making women infertile. So once they take it out and try to get pregnant, they cannot get pregnant because of the damage that's been caused. And so, my competitors mostly want to run over me with the car because they're like, look, because I have to be honest, coming out with this non-hormonal option was very innovative. And we are, as you can imagine, being a woman running this company, I obviously am very, very bullish about making sure that every woman knows about this and has access, and it's not for every woman. There are some women that say, look, I love my hormones. And I say, you know what, that's okay. Good for you. But there are 21 million women that hate hormones. And so we're excited to have that option for them, which is super important.
Well, I don't understand. Why would they want to take a birth control?
So there are some women who have hormonal issues to begin with. Birth control can do two things. It can help with acne. So they take it, skin clears up, they look glowy and beautiful. And sometimes it even helps keep the weight down, depending on the type of birth control. So some women will stay svelte and look good and have beautiful skin and be like, look at me, and I'm not pregnant right now.
But something also we need to bring up is what's nice about your product is it's on demand. It gives women the power to say, I want to now say, this is my safe sex. This is my protection. Because normally they have to take it for months and months and months to be protected. This is on demand. Once you insert it, you have up to an hour to use the product, and then you reinsert another one. If you use as many as you want. And by the way, guys, it doesn't have a weird taste. I know that sounds kind of weird, but oral sex, you're kind of concerned it might taste like mustard gas. It doesn't. Okay.
It does not taste like mustard gas. And you know what? There's a question that I want to answer if I could. So here is the deal. Marco's friend cut her finger was cooking dinner. Okay, but the one comment I want to say is that, So because it's a prescription product and approved by the FDA, there's a requirement through this division OPDP that makes us educate doctors before we can launch direct to consumer. So we launched the drug in September of last year. So we're educating doctors, and we just got done that quote time period. So February 14th, Valentine's Day, is our huge direct to consumer launch. Okay. So we have 20 social media advocates, but in February, we're launching celebrity activists, big celebrities that you know, and television commercials on Hulu and Netflix. And the ads are very cool and provocative and edgy and sassy, and what real women respond to, right? So we're super excited. So you are going to see the name Phexxi all over the place starting Valentine's Day. But up until this point, we've only been able to do some light social media education because we were making sure that doctors knew. So when women go into the offices or do telemedicine during COVID, the doctors know what Phexxi is and how to write it. But that's
actually,
a great question.
On the same note, so you guys launched the product in September of last year, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, so I ended up, because we were going to be gone for a year, I ended up making my gynecology appointment, and it was in November of last year. And I specifically asked my gyno if he had heard of Phexxi. And he goes, oh yeah. Now keep in mind, it had been out since September. I went the very first week of November. And he said, oh yes, I've been prescribing it to all of my patients. And he is one of the top gynecologists in Los Angeles. So if he's prescribing it to all of his patients within the first few months of it being out, what does that mean for the world?
Yeah. So, Sandra, can we step back? You're in Southern California.
Yep.
Did you start this company, or were you brought in to run this company?
So I sort of a little bit of both. So the quick story, I promise this will be quick. So I basically took over in 2014, at the end of 2014. But what happened is that the company wasn't called Evofem Biosciences. It was a subsidiary of a parent company. That parent company had 3 companies underneath of it. 2 of those companies failed, didn't hit their milestones. The investors came in and basically shut them down. But what happened is I started a nonprofit in 2009 that was really about contraceptive access globally. And so I heard about this product and I thought it was so amazing. And I knew that the company that had it, this company called Evomed, they were just plugging along. And I heard a rumor they were not going to develop it for contraception for women, that instead they were just going to coat condoms. That's all they were going to do is coat condoms. So bottom line is I reached out to them. They asked me to come in and leave my company, Women Care Global. And I said, look, Women Care Global, I can't do that. That's not what I'm interested in. I just want access to this product for Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So what we did is we made an agreement. They needed somebody to raise money and help them build a team. I wanted the product in perpetuity for outside of the US. So we entered into an agreement. But a year later, the investors came in and said, look, you are hitting all these milestones. Will you stay and take the company public? And I said, well, if I do, I need to reconstitute. I need to get a new board and start from the ground up. And they said, great, we're in. So then we became Evofem Biosciences. And then I stepped in as the CEO. But we went public through a reverse merger, which had, its ups and downs. But we've been able to raise $400 million of capital since I've been the CEO. So it's been great.
And it's quite ironic then you developed cancer. I mean, this company theoretically is all around the idea of prevention of having cancer because of the hormone side effects of birth control. But before we even go there, what did you do in college? What were you? What is the whole passion of you when you were younger, when you were moving forward? You were going to be what when you grew up?
I was actually, if some of you might be too young to know this, at the time, Connie Chung was a lot more popular. I was going to be broadcast journalism. I mean, I want to do CBS Sunday Morning, Jane Pauley's job. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be broadcast journalist, and I cared a lot about that. That's what I went to school for. But I will be honest, I say that sometimes what you choose chooses you. I was always this kind of troublemaker. Like, I would always lead pickets that all the girls got the secretary jobs and all the boys got the management jobs, and I would call the newspaper and I would shut down the streets, and the school was like, my God, please stop this. And so I would do stuff all the time. Like, there's inequality, what's happening? And so even when I was in high school, like, I got arrested like 12 times just because I picketed because girls had to do sewing and cooking And I thought, why can't we do fly tying and arc welding? And so I said, this is just unjust. So they would call my poor mother. And I grew up in Caribou, Maine, the northernmost city in the US. I didn't grow up in beautiful California. And I grew up in a very, very rural, very, very, very meager place. And my mom had 12 brothers and sisters. And so my mom grew up in a farm with outdoor plumbing. And she always said to me, you have got to get out of here and never come back. And I would say, what do you mean? And she'd say, you make enough money and you send me a plane ticket. I didn't even get on a plane until I was out of high school. And she's like, you send me a plane ticket. And I was like, what? She would say this when I was like 5 years old. Swear to you, I'm not kidding. So I was raised by this woman who was just like, and she would say to me, like, you should never have a baby before you're ready. It will never get you out of here. And so long story short, I was always subconsciously and consciously raised to be this advocate for equality for women, not to be better or worse than men, just to be equal. So when I went to college, the bottom line is after I caused all this trouble, they said to me, listen, calm down. We'll let you orchestrate the interviews. Okay, just stop making trouble. Just stop it. So I said, fine, I'll orchestrate the interviews. So 3 pharmaceutical companies came in to interview all these science majors. So I was orchestrating it all. And at the end of the interviews, the one manager said to me, I'd like to offer you a job. And I said, what? I didn't even interview. I'm not even interviewing for that. And I said, I don't want to sell drugs. I said, that's not even a good, anyway. So I said all these things and he said to me, okay, listen, we are a company that launched the first birth control pill. We call it OBGYNs. We're about women's empowerment and you'll get a company car. And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound very bad. That's probably good. And he said, well, how about this? Why don't you just do this job until you get your big break in broadcasting? And I was like, okay, that's a good idea. Well, hello, 40 years later, here I am. But so I have to be honest. So that's exactly how it happened. Honest to goodness. I started working for GD Searle. They did launch the first birth control pill. And yeah, I never looked back. I really was fortunate to still be able to use my voice to figure out how to make innovation for women.
And do you wish you also had a daughter?
Well, you want to hear something crazy? When I was pregnant, God, it was nuts. I had all these male friends of mine, right, who desperately wanted a boy. And when they found out I was having a boy, literally imagine, girls called me, women said, oh God, I'm so sorry. I heard you're having a boy. And then the men called and they're like, what kind of karma is it? You're having a boy of all people. Why do you get to have a boy? And I'm like, I'm going to raise a feminist and a gentleman. It's going to be great. He could marry your daughters. And so it was such a strange thing. But I will tell you the truth. It has been an interesting and wonderful blessing. You know, I mean, my brother calls him Baby G instead of Baby J, Baby Jesus, because he jokes that he's the only grandchild of my side of the family. My brother has no kids. But my son is very cool, a little bit sassy. He likes to critique my clothing, which I do not like at all, but he gives me ratings, which lately haven't been very high, but he's very sweet and funny. But yeah, having the boy was a big surprise.
The reason I wanted to go this way, guys, is I wanted you to understand who Sandra was, not just as the CEO of this company, but as a person, because when you meet her, I don't care what she would do. If she worked for the Taliban, I would support it, okay? Because her passion is infectious. And I think it's so important for us to have a CEO that's running a company that's changing the way we look at taking back your sexual ownership. And we have to have a dynamo. You have to have a dynamo.
Absolutely.
And people, you don't realize that Sandra's not 6 foot tall. No. Sandra?
That's true. I'm 5'2", I'm 5'2", but yes. But you know what? Can I just tell you something interesting that you just said, Ken, and not to jump in, but the one thing that I have found most amazing about doing this, when I go to all these conferences, right, and I meet all these investors and I'm in rooms with all men, the one thing that has been so important for me, and then, okay, so before I started raising money, I heard all these stories like male investors won't invest in women as CEOs, women running companies, and all the negatives. And so I went into it with an open mind saying, you know what? You have to really think about the why, right? What are you really trying to deliver? And I will be candid with you, the men that I talk to and the men that invest in this company, they they not only care about women in the most passionate and important way, they say stuff like, look, we're not mind readers. All we want is to have a little bit of education, and we're interested. We're interested in listening. We're interested in knowing, and don't make assumptions that we don't care about women's health. The assumptions that women have been making in pharma that these men don't care about women are the wrong assumptions. They're just wrong. And so we've been able to raise money because we've been able to target our audience to people who say, you know what? It's worth investing in, because when women feel good, when women feel empowered, everybody that they interact with benefits. Everybody, their kids, their spouses, everybody. But when women secretly feel bad and they don't tell anybody, right? When they feel sluggish and they have weight gain and they have headaches and they don't feel like themselves and they feel crazy. And by the way, their significant others know they're acting crazy, right? So I have found just the opposite. I swear to God, like when I take a time to really sit down and have a conversation, men are like, you know what? This makes perfect sense, like perfect sense. So
talk about it because it makes sense. We walk around.
We've sold more stock.
Oh my God. And we're going to touch upon that. By the way, your chair cracks me up because it's either, it looks like a manicure pedicure chair or one of the chairs from a SpaceX capsule where astronauts go in.
I know, it's actually, you know what? I have to sit on my legs because if I don't, look, it's like one of those, like I'm a child, like in this little chair like this, like, hello, hello. And then my son took my cushion and I didn't have time to go get it. So now I have to sit up here so you can see me, but it's okay. I'm ready.
I'm gonna bring up your deck because I want us to share this.
Okay, thanks.
And let's talk about the things in here. And again, Sandy hasn't seen this, so she's going to smile the minute she sees it. Okay.
Okay.
You ready, Sandy?
Okay.
Here we go. All right, Sandra, talk to us what we see in front of us.
Okay, thank you. So this is a photograph that Sandy took of me. And so this is one of my favorite t-shirts. And I love it so much because, you know, I am short and the funny thing is that I used to joke and say, listen, don't mistake my kindness for weakness, you know, like, because I talk a lot about emotional intelligence as my style of leadership. I mean, I really care that people who work at our company are connected. And I say to them, look, blood is thicker than water, and I need you to be emotionally invested in this endeavor. It matters to me. But then I want to make sure investors don't think that I'm too soft. So I always love this t-shirt, fragile, you know, not fragile like a flower, fragile like a bomb. And then the next slide shows you the Phexxi. Yeah, this shows you Phexxi, right? What it looks like, what the prescription box looks like. And this is going to be part of, wait till you see our commercial that's coming out on February 14th. It's so awesome. I actually saw it just today, the final cut today, very sassy and really good. But then the next slide, just for those of you that say, look, show me where the dollars and cents are, right? And this will be super quick. But I have investors say to me, Sandra, this is a niche market. And I say, you're right, it is. But in this market, small percentages deliver huge results. So if you look at this pie and you look at this blue, there's 18.8 million women using prescription contraception, pills, patches, IUDs, everything you see on TV, everything you know about that your significant others have used. Now, we're not targeting those women, but a lot of those women are saying, you know what? Should I really be taking a hormone every day when I don't have sex every day? So if you can just get a small percent, 1 to 2% of that market, it's $350 to $700 million. But the real market, where something's going on with my slide, but that's okay. The real market, the pink, is really 10 million, 10.8 million. What that represents is women who are right now using nothing. They're having sex using no form of nothing. They're not using condoms, withdrawal, nothing. And if we just get 2 to 3.5%, that's 300 to 700 million. And the orange one, which, sorry about that, you can't see, is 10.3. Those are people who are using condoms and withdrawal and the rhythm method. So if you look at this, I say to investors, if we can just get under 1 million women, that's $1 billion market opportunity. So there is a huge investment proposition here. Then I say, guess who this doesn't include? The 700,000 women who get cancer every year. And if you go to the next slide, I share this next slide because I say, look, I know exactly what that's like. I had cancer with no family history and no gene, and it was shocking. And by the way, a lot of these women, I want you to know this, the thing that they care about besides saving their life is what's going to happen to their relationship with their partner. And I'm being serious. Like, they are so worried that their intimacy is going to fall apart, that it's not going to work out with their partner. And I know this isn't my therapy session, but you see, I was engaged then, I'm no longer now. My relationship completely dissipated. I joke now and tell people that he liked big breasted women, and I have no breasts, so that's why. But that's not really true. But really, in the end, it was super sad, you know, because when you're going through this, it's a very crazy time. So anyway, it's real though. These women taking these hormones for a long time, you don't know the impact that it's having. And by the way, it's silent daily sins. I mean, I started taking birth control at 15. Okay, I'm 51 right now. I just had cancer 2 years ago. Okay, so that was a heavy thing for me to realize. And when Ken said, isn't it weird and serendipitous? You guys, I'm not joking. I was sitting there like, well, this is a true story. I said to the doctor who called me, I said, look, I have to tell you something. I will not tell a soul, but you have called the wrong patient. This is one of those times that you actually have the wrong patient chart. And she said, Sandra, that kind of denial is going to kill you. Of course, this is not the wrong patient chart. And I said, I don't know how the hell I could have stage 3 cancer. And then 3 weeks later, I had to have a mastectomy. But I'm just saying it because, you know, I understand what it's like sexually and emotionally and physically. And then the last slide is just really to speak to, I try to change the minds of women talking to men. And I say, look, when men are little, they get fed a lot of garbage. And then you can control 2 things in your life is what I believe. You control what you feed your mind, and you control what you feed your body. Garbage in, garbage out. Joy, peace, love in, joy, peace, love out. And when I had my son, I saw all these people around in his life saying stuff like this: be a man, be tough, be strong, like not letting him emote, not letting him be sensitive, not letting him experience things that he wanted to, by the way. He wanted to be a sensitive soul. And I thought it was such a bummer that all of these stereotypes are put on men, because we talk about what's happening to women, right? All the shame that goes on to women. But for me, I thought it was so interesting to see what is happening to these men, these boys growing up to be these men. And it's just such bullshit. And so when I talk about our investors, I say, you know, look, I get it. And I understand that maybe it's awkward and weird to talk about women's health. And I want to talk to you about it in however way you want. I'll be serious and clinical. I'll say vagina. I will say seminal fluid. I won't talk to you about orgasms and, you know, vaginal discharge. So I kind of, you know, feel them out. But now even the most, I had some men who would turn all red and ready. The one guy who turned all red about 4 months ago, he said, you know what? I'll have you know, I can lick Phexxi right off a glass if I want to now. And I was like, okay, well, let's not do that, shall we? But I just say that because I don't know. I just think it's really, really important for women to also recognize that there's a lot of tapes, a lot of old tapes that are just piled on to men. And oftentimes, if you give them the opportunity and the space to be safe and to have a real conversation about their partners and what's happening with the opposite sex, they're super interested. So those are my slides.
Yeah, they're great slides. I find something to be interesting. So we're spending time with a very successful entrepreneur here in Dubai. And he said, Ken, there's only 2 things people need in life, only 2. They need security and happiness. Mm-hmm. Security and happiness. And when I think about what you've done is that's what you're creating. You've created a product that gives exactly what he's looking for in life, what we all should, and that's security and happiness. Mm-hmm. So it's a product that gives you security, but it also gives you the happiness to where I don't have to worry, it just works, which is fascinating, right? And it's not, and that's where I wanted to go with. I'm wondering, marketing a product, do you market as a sex product or a sex prevention or birth control, or is it a security and happiness product? Because that's what it really gives a woman. Do you agree?
Totally. I completely agree. Oh, Ken, I completely agree. And I'll tell you the bummer that happened is that, so in our study, we measured sexual pleasure and sexual satisfaction, but the FDA would not let us put it in our label yet because they said that we had to do an additional study. So bottom line is that I wanted to talk about that more than I wanted to talk about the contraceptive benefits. I mean, I wanted to say, listen, let's talk about happiness and pleasure. Let's talk about not feeling bad, right? Not having no libido. I mean, the psychological pressure when women don't have a sex drive. I mean, I am telling you, there were so many women that got so crestfallen when Viagra came out because they're like, we need Viagra. We need a female Viagra, right? Our partner wants to have sex all the time. We don't want to have sex ever. And it's not that I don't love my husband or my partner. I do. I just don't have any desire. And so I wanted to. So the bottom line is in the study we're doing right now for chlamydia and gonorrhea, we've added in as our second study to talk about sexual pleasure. So as soon as that study's done at the end of this year, we'll be able to advertise, advocate, and talk about it. But right now, we can only talk about it through our medical science liaisons with key opinion leaders. But we're doing that, by the way. But yes, it's kind of a bummer because how women feel, it changes everything.
Yeah, guys, I don't even think you really understand what it feels like to be a woman and not have a libido. We just don't care about sex. And I know I've heard it from men. I've heard it from Ken. Like, sex is on the forefront of your minds all the time. You're like, what do you mean you don't think about sex? Like, women can straight up turn it off like a switch, click, and it can be off for decades. This isn't like, yeah, we're just gonna turn it back on. And then you guys are like, hey, let's do this. And it's off. When it's off, it's off. It's like black. And you have to turn the light back on. You gotta click that switch. And the best way to do that is to make women feel really great about their bodies. And Phexxi does that because the birth control turns off the light, puts you in blackness, and Phexxi turns back on the light. And having a woman who is sexually charged up and wants to have sex with you is so powerful because when women start really partaking in sexual experience and pleasure, they want more and more and more. And then guess what? You can't handle it.
Well, it's like, but you know what though? But I'm telling you this too. The lubricating properties, I swear to you, I'm not kidding. There are women who, it's so crazy. It's like, I don't know what there's women that didn't ever use lubrication and they use Phexxi and they're like, oh my God, sex is so much more pleasurable because they don't have any vaginal moisture, right? Can you imagine? I mean, that's very painful for them. So this also really, really helps the whole intimacy. And that's what's been really awesome is to hear the sexual intimacy stories and, you know, the pleasurable sex, because you're right. When women don't have a libido, I mean, it's not only a bummer for the women, but for the whole relationship.
It's true.
It's true.
Sandra, okay, Mighty Paul, hang on for a second. Got one more question and we're going to dive into your questions. Sandra.
Yeah.
Why is it a prescription product? I'm kind of perplexed on this.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great question and very important. So here's why we chose to go prescription. So there's women reasons and there's capitalistic reasons. So in market research, there 100% was a perception of the mindset of women that when they're trying to do something as serious to them as prevent pregnancy and manage not getting pregnant, that something approved by the FDA was safer and better. And so FDA perception, not for all women, but for the majority of women, was safer. Number two, under Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, contraception is covered as a category. So right now, the majority of women get it zero out-of-pocket pay. But if it's over the counter, they have to pay. It depends on what your plan is and what your health plan is. Some of them will pay up to $30. But if it's over the counter, then for example, Plan B one step is $55. So women are getting it cheaper because it's prescription, because of Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. So that's why it's prescription for those reasons. But also the over-the-counter market is much, 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 much less profitable in the category of contraception. So we had to invest $150 million to bring the drug to market. So we had to do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So all in $150 million. And in order to bring back shareholder return, the capitalistic reason too is the best way to do that is for it to be a prescription product. Because when we go out to these managed care plans, right, they're willing to pay a lot more and women pay a lot less.
So that means you would theoretically have two product lines. One would be an over the counter, another one would be a prescription. and they would be marketed differently or labeled differently, so you could at least take advantage of the healthcare as well as accessibility.
Yes,
Okay,
down the
makes
road in
sense.
the future, we definitely will end up taking it over the counter after, we're on the market and after we get the chlamydia and gonorrhea indications.
Right. Mighty Paul, you had a question? Go for it. Come
No,
on.
I just, excuse me. This is, there's a weird echo. Can you hear it?
Yeah, because
There is a
Eddie's
little bit of
across
an
from
echo.
me. Eddie has to mute his computer.
Oh,
No, I think it's my damn.
Oh, just here.
Can you hear me now, guys?
Here, Mighty
That better?
Paul. Mute yours.
Wow.
Eddie, unmute yours.
I just think this is such an important topic that I come from a very conservative culture where women are kind of just like, you're a woman, that's all you're supposed to do. And you mentioned a couple key points here that I think that is going to be important, because it's almost like I want young teenage girls to understand this part without becoming that dude that's a creepy guy trying to introduce something into this lane. I'm a dude, but as an uncle, I have nieces that I want them to enjoy life to the fullest. And this is a product that I would want my niece, even at 12, 13, to know that just like brushing your teeth, flossing your teeth, this is one of those magical things that you should also add to your repertoire of daily care. Whether and it's not to encourage them to have sex, it's for them to understand that this is part of preparation to becoming a young woman and adulthood. And I don't know, maybe I'm sounding like a creep by saying these things, but that's how I feel as an uncle.
Can I tell you something? I was literally going to say, I wish
That's
that
it.
when I was young, I wish you were my uncle, because truthfully, I mean, the one thing you have to know is that for you, no, okay, one, you don't sound like a creep at all. And I hope that you know that, look, I am supposed to be working on being so transparent and direct, but I'm not doing a good job, and I'm not really going to work on that. Meaning, I would be direct with you. Not only is it not creepy, it shows that you really have a different level of empathy for these girls, right? I mean, because you got to think about it when they're young and they understand that this is an option. So think about men with condoms, boys with condoms. They can go out with a condom in their pocket, have sex, not get a girl pregnant, not get a sexually transmitted infection. But women have never had that empowerment ever until now. They can have a Phexxi in their purse, have a Phexxi in their pocket, and they never have to worry. So to your point, right, having that backup, having that peace of mind that there it is, no matter what, I think is really game changing. And by the way, our ingredients are so safe. There was less than 2% of discontinuation rate. In hormonal contraception studies, it's 20 and 25%. So the ingredients are all natural, very safe ingredients. So nothing bad's going to happen to them. So it's a really important thing for young women, because then, by the way, they're never going to have to worry. And any other medications they're on, because there's no systemic side effects, you don't have to worry about that either as they grow older, right? It won't interact with anything that they take.
But Sandra, I'm ask Sandy. Sandy, where do you learn about contraception?
Your mother
Or your gynecologist.
or your gynecologist.
So it's either once every 6 months or a year from a gynecologist. And when you bring up to your mother, where guys, they see it when they walk in the store, it's right behind the counter, or it's right there, you see the condoms.
Yeah.
So the biggest problem is it's so accessible to guys where women don't know about it. So one of your biggest marketing challenges is education.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny because Sandy and I are very open with our conversation. Like, I talk about Diva Cups. I'm the one who actually talks to women about Diva Cups going,
He actually did the other day at dinner, and I was like, I'm talking to someone, I go, what are you guys talking about?
But women don't know about a lot of these advancements or other optional tools. It's something that Sandy taught me about women when it comes to even like makeup. If you meet a woman that's in her 40s or 50s and you go, you know what, she could look so much better. Well, it's because she's putting on her makeup the way she was when she was 20 years old, and no one told her about how she has to change the way she needs to put her makeup on as she gets older, because no one's there. It's the same thing with contraception. They think what I did when I was young is what I should do when I'm older, and that's not necessarily the case at all. So your challenge is legacy, is the old infrastructure still existing today, because no one really knows there's progressive changes when it comes to birth control.
And also conditioning for women and sexual shaming. A lot of women are embarrassed to talk about it. Like, I'm not going to talk about that. Let's change the subject.
Yep. No, it's 100% true. Education is going to be so significant to the success of this product. And the one good thing now is with social media, right? We do have these pretty amazing social media influencers. Like, for example, a woman who has 2 babies, she's breastfeeding. She doesn't want hormones in her breast milk. Then we have a young girl that has had all these terrible issues with hormonal pills. Then we have a woman who's in a monogamy. We've tried to get a diversity of women to talk about it, to try to talk about the myths and the misconceptions, and try to talk about that it shouldn't be awkward, right? We all got here because a woman and a man had sex. And let's try to normalize it. But your point is right, both of you, that education is going to be a critical factor in this. And it's very important to us to make sure, that we're educating everybody at every level.
So Sandra, we have 2 questions. One is.
Well, no, let's let them ask it.
Oh.
Okay, so Neil.
One is Neil Cannon.
Go ahead, Neil, you ask your question.
Hi, Sandra. Amazing product you have here, and hi, everyone else.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw your presentation at Metal a few months ago as well. Really impressed.
Thank you.
Quick question. What's the effectiveness rate in terms of pregnancy prevention?
Yeah, so here's the good and the bad of that. So the pregnancy rate in the label is 93%. And so here's what I would tell you is that in our clinical study, the FDA made us include failures when women use the product after sex, which it definitely does not work after sex. And they made us include failures when women did not use the product at all. So when they didn't use it or they use it after sex, they had to be included. Now, one of the things that happened is that the FDA, and I won't go too down a rabbit hole here, but I think it's important for you to hear this. Every product on the market today is measured by the FDA in something called a Pearl Index. What happens with the Pearl Index is that the longer you're on a hormone, the higher the efficacy is because you've got more circulating hormones in your body. So if you take birth control for a year and you skip it on Saturday night, you're not going to get pregnant because you've got all those hormones in your body. Well, our product is just like a condom. You have to use it for it to work. And I know that sounds like Captain Obvious. So we went to the FDA and said, you can't measure us by a Pearl Index because we don't have any hormones. So we convinced them. Now, a woman on our board used to run this division of the FDA, Lisa Rarick. She's on our board, and she helped us convince the FDA, you need to measure this company and this product by something called Kaplan-Meier. What that is that basically every time you use the product, what happens? Now, so they agreed to that, but they also said anything that's a failure has to be recorded. But my point in telling you that is that, so birth control pills, for example, there's all these myths. A birth control pill is actually just under 94% effective because most women skip a pill 1 or 2 times a month. They don't remember, okay? So our medical officer, our chief medical officer, who's an OBGYN, she's convinced and I'm convinced that the more you use the product, that the efficacy in the study is not going to be real world, that it's really going to end up being much higher because it's much like a contact lens. The first couple of times it's awkward, but then once you get used to using it and you remember, I've got to use this before sex, within an hour before sex, then that will improve, right? Point 1. But the other thing is that the interesting part is that if you have sex unprotected with no form of contraception, like the 21 million women I told you about, your relative risk of getting pregnant is 85%. So if you do nothing, you have an 85% chance of getting pregnant. So for those women, by the way, who aren't using any form, they think 93% is amazing, right? They're like, oh my God, are you kidding? But yes, the short answer is it's 93%. But I give you all those other things, not because I'm trying to make excuses, but because it kind of bummed me out that we had to include these failures that shouldn't really have to be counted, but
it's like putting a condom on after sex.
yes, exactly right.
What?
Is that what I said? So I'm going wrong. Just a quick question then. What are the results? What are the results that you can tell us, not the official results, if you didn't include the failure rates? Do you know what that is?
Well, yeah. Well, so 98.6 are the results. So we tried to not include the failures, and then we would have had 98.6. And I was literally doing cartwheels in the hallways and everything, like very excited, drinking martinis at 10 a.m. No, I wasn't, but I wanted to drink martinis at 10 a.m. But they said no. The FDA said Like, no, it's not happening. No. And want me to tell you the other thing? I'll tell you the truth. This is going to sound really weird, is that I kind of felt like the FDA was nervous about this product, because I think that there was some old school male OBGYNs that were saying stuff like, honestly saying, you know what? Young women can't be responsible. They are all promiscuous and need an IUD. All women need an IUD, something they can't control. Put in by a doctor and taken out by a doctor. This is just this is not going to be for young women. But I have to tell you the truth, we've seen the opposite. Young women are saying, I don't want my mother's contraception. I've got this. I'm in control. I'm empowered. I don't need some doctor to put a copper IUD in me that I can't control. I can only take out by a doctor. So I do think that they were a little bit nervous. However, once they found out we were doing this study for chlamydia and gonorrhea, which, by the way, no other company would do because it's a very hard study to run, and gonorrhea is antibiotic resistant, they gave us a 6-month fast track review on that and said they'll give us qualified infectious disease prevention, which is 5 more years patent exclusivity. So they've come around now that they're like, wow, this company isn't just a flash in the pan. This company really cares about innovation in women. And they're like, oh my God, you're going to develop something for chlamydia and gonorrhea? And by the way, there's nothing indicated right now in the US. So that was a long answer, sorry. But that's what I think really was going on.
So let's go to, who do you want to go to next?
Yeah, let's go to Marco.
Marco?
Hi, this is Marco's friend.
Oh, hi.
Marco's
Hi,
friend.
is your finger okay?
I'm elevating my finger.
Okay, good. Oh, good.
I was overhearing, and so I was like, you know what, I have a question.
Good.
Yeah, so, I'm just curious if your studies found anything, any benefits for women suffering from fibroids, because a lot of the time women with fibroids get on the pill to, have better periods. But you don't want to take the pill because, it's kind of like counterintuitive. It causes more issues than it helps. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
So we didn't study, truthfully, we didn't study anything around fibroids. And when the patients came into our study, we had 1,400 women in the clinical study, and we weren't asked and didn't collect data around fibroids. So I'm sorry about that, but you know what I could do if you're interested, and I can send it to Sandy and Ken, our chief medical officer, who's an OBGYN. I could just ask her if she has any insight on it, because yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I do know, by the way, they do recommend though using hormonal birth control to help, which did it help you, or did you try it?
Well, the funny thing is I got off of using the pill like 10 years ago because I didn't want any hormones in my body. And then years later, maybe like 5 years later, I developed fibroids. So I wasn't sure what caused what.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I'm a big skeptic.
I can vouch that you can still get fibroids even if you were on the birth control pill.
Yeah.
I was on it for 10 years and I took a break from it. I was on it for 10 years again and I came down with fibroids. So I would much rather have taken Phexxi.
Yeah, it didn't exist back then.
Let's go to Mike. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's go to Mike Navarro. I'd love to hear your question.
It turned out I have a second question, but my question is, what's the barrier to entry? What can competitors do to come in and take some of your share?
Yeah, so right now in the market, there is, well, let me tell you, there's no other non-hormonal contraceptive product that you use on demand. So here's what is out there. The only other product that is prescription approved by the FDA is a copper IUD called Paragard that has to be put in by a doctor and taken out by a doctor. And what you will see, so right now there's a study that just came out 1 week ago that they have numerous lawsuits that women are becoming infertile because the copper inside the body is leaking inside the body, and the copper is actually impacting the uterus. So there's tons of lawsuits of women becoming infertile. But the bigger thing is that there's a lot of abdominal pain and a lot of bleeding. And why I know that is that a bunch of other cancer patients were in treatment with me and they were still fertile. I mean, I had to have my uterus and ovaries taken out. But when women have to be on birth control and you're a cancer patient, they ethically have to give you a prescription. And the only thing they had was Paragard. And these oncologists were like, oh my God, these women have suffered. And the last thing we want to do is give them a copper IUD. So the only competitor on the market is that. We have patent protection through 2033. And then once we come out with the gonorrhea indication, it'll be 5 additional years. So we have very good patent coverage to stave off a competitor. And the other thing I want to tell you is that because we have no hormones, there's no systemic activity, no bioequivalence can be measured. So let's pretend we didn't have patent exclusivity. A generic competitor would have to show bioequivalence. So we have a white paper written by the head of the generics division of the FDA that says there's no way you could come out with a generic because you can't measure bioequivalence. Someone would have to do a brand new product. So we feel really, really good about our exclusivity position.
Yeah, great
So guys,
answer. So, and my other question is, you were saying it was a 2% dropout rate of women that didn't feel good using it. What are like the list of side effects?
Yeah, the biggest thing was vaginal itching. And by the way, the placebo side had the same amount. So normal women that go into studies, and normal women have some vaginal itching, whether it's like before their period or for whatever reason, but less than 2%, the number one was vaginal itching. That was pretty much the dominant one.
So guys, I want to talk about something real quick, unrelated to the actual medical side. If you've been following me in metal for the last couple of years, I call stocks really, really well. So if you guys went off and bought AMC when I told you to buy it, it's gone up like multiple times, or CCL, which is Carnival Cruise Lines. I look at companies and I look at the storylines behind it because I'm pretty good at justifying it. If you guys bought Peloton, you did very, very well. I call them. I think, now this is my Jim Cramer hat on. I think Evofem is a undervalued stock. It's insanely undervalued. And if you listen to, and Sandra can't say these things, so I'm going to say them as an investor. At $2.68 with the current investment, the hit prices. If you heard what she said coming out in February, all this new marketing campaign is going to happen at a $2.68. I would rather put money into this than Bitcoin. And the reason why, I want you to understand, Bitcoin being at, let's say, even 20,000, it's not, it's at 30 right now. If it goes up 5x, that means it has to be $100,000, okay? It will not go to 5x anytime soon. A company like Phexxi at $2.68 to go to $25, that is now almost a 9x return. This is a much more justifiable growth stock than a Bitcoin. And all you guys are rushing into Bitcoin. This makes more sense because there's an actual product and IP behind it, where Bitcoin doesn't have any of that.
And like I had said, my gynecologist had only discovered the product as of September, October, and by November, he was giving it to all of his patients.
Yep.
That's a big deal.
So I just want you to understand, I'm trying to always have you look at companies where you can get that 5 to 10x return. This is it. So this is outside, and I know you can't talk about that, Sandra. This is me as an investor looking at this. This is a damn good deal because right now it's underperforming. It's on sale. It's massively on. It's in the 99-cent store, and it shouldn't be there. It should be over at Bloomingdale's. Okay. So just pay attention to that.
Yes.
Sandra, we only have a couple of minutes left. Is there anything else you want to bring up? Because I think, one, we love you as a person. You, right? Eddie, if Sandy wasn't your gate, so Sandy has gay dates, okay? So Eddie is her gay date. I think you had it yesterday, or do you have tomorrow?
No, we had it the other day.
Oh, the other day, right? You would actually go after Sandra, would be your gate, right, Eddie?
It would be my future ex-wife.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Sandra, when I saw your name, I'm from Maine too. And I was like, the last time I saw Pelletier I'm like, that's a Mainer name.
Oh my God, are you really? I love that. I rarely met anybody from Maine.
Yeah, from Central Maine. I actually have a cabin in Caribou too.
Oh my goodness, you're kidding me. So you know exactly where I'm from. Oh, I love that. It's so nice to meet you.
You too.
Well,
That's
Eddie might be down in Bali when you might be down in Bali. Fingers are crossed when that happens.
I love that. I would love that.
So I'm going to let you close things out between you and Sandra. You brought Sandra into our life. Okay, we love Sandra, but any last thing you want to bring up?
You know, Sandra's just so wonderful, and I love her so much. And Guys, listen to her, follow her. She's amazing. The marketing that's coming out is going to blow your mind. I mean, obviously because her pictures are like, but the best part about her pictures are they're authentically her. So what you see with Sandra is what you get. So if she can sell you guys on this product right now, imagine what the world's going to see. So Sandra, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you both so much. It was really my pleasure. And thank all of you guys for joining this tonight. I really, really am grateful. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Okay,